Thank you. Call this evening's meeting to order. First up, we have the consent agenda. Anybody on the council have any questions on the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented and authorize the mayor to sign.
A second.
Ma'am.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Etkin.
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
All right, motion approved. And moving on to comments from the public. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to address the council on something not on the agenda? If you can state your name and address for the minutes and then try to keep your comments under 3 minutes, we appreciate it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm Christopher Hines. I live at 309 West Piankashaw. My family's lived there for 23 years. I'm a local teacher and science teacher. I work at Woodland Spring Middle and Spring Hill. So I've lived here all this time. I worked with Ms. Hayes at Paola Middle School for a while, and I asked her advice on this, and she told me to come here tonight. Recently, Osawatomie passed an ordinance to allow residential chickens, and I was looking to see if you guys would look into that as well. Right now, the current rules for Paola is they have to have at least 3 acres for even 1 chicken on your property. Or, as the code enforcement officer said, if no one complains, we're not going to check. And I don't really have a space in my yard for that kind of non-complaint because I have no backyard. I have 2 side yards and a front yard. The way my house is set up, and the current rule for structures is they have to be in the backyard. So that would also have to be a change that would be made. Some reasons for having chickens is 1, it's a good educational opportunity for my classroom. 2, it's an ethical reason to get eggs. The chickens we were looking at getting would produce about 200 to 250 eggs a year. I am not about to eat 1,000 eggs, so I'm happy to share those with friends and family members. And it's also been widely accepted in other towns around us. Osawatomie is one, Overland Park, Olathe, and Lawrence. There are some rules with them. They usually have a permit process that can range from as low as $50 a year to $250 for the initial permit, and then a renewal of about $50 after that. There are setback rules, so they can't be too close to other properties or to the roads. And those vary from 5 feet to 25 feet to different rules in each one. There is some maximum sets, usually it's between 5 and 12 hens, and no roosters are allowed. There's all these sanitation things and all that as well, which would just be for caring for the animal properly. So that is what I have. I also have other information if anyone has any questions for it.
Thank you for coming, and we'll follow up if we have any questions.
Perfect.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Deborah Crane. I live at 906 North Hospital Drive, apartment 41. And I'm here tonight just to introduce myself and offer my services. I'd like to be more acquainted with the council and do what I can. I'm recently been hired and have been working for the last couple months as the director of the Paola Senior Center. And I just wanted to get out and meet some of you and get to know you and let you know that I'm there, and we're working hard to get back our people in building up our numbers. A lot of people, of course, since COVID haven't gotten back out, and so we're really looking for activities and things to do, and we're on a roll with that. So I think we're getting more people coming out, and we'd like to see more and have more. So getting the word out and about is what I'm all about.
Thanks for coming. Your social media has been very active. That I know that's a lot of the times I see what's going on there. So
That has been a good thing that has brought some people in. Unfortunately, some of our age group people don't do computers or social media. So we still have to do the old fashioned flyers and word of mouth and stuff, but yeah, with that and the new website that's being developed that we're coattailing on to the Miami County Council on Aging is getting a website together, and then the Paola Senior Center will have a page on it. So That'll be our website for too long there. So I just wanted to come and say hi and thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Carolyn Lasher, 28-310 Lone Star Road, Paola. My concern is what is happening with 115 West Wea. In 2015, it was deemed unsafe. That's 7 years ago, and it's just sat there and keeps deteriorating. And I don't know what it's doing. We have a building at 111. I don't know what it's doing to our building. I don't know what it's doing to the dance studio on the west side of it. So I'm just very concerned about what is going to happen with that dilapidated building.
I believe we're still in the timeline that we set out and working through that process. So it's moving along.
Okay,
We're just in that timeline. Yep.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Anyone else? Okay. If not, we'll move on to new business. First in new business, we have the 2023 audit.
So Harold Spade, the Dagline Gatter, has completed the independent audit and financial accounting records for the city. So he was here to present that to you guys.
I thought you said 2023.
I meant, it's not, yeah, 2022.
Thank you.
You don't want to
I'm
predict.
not ready for that one.
You don't want to predict.
If you go past the table of contents, the independent auditor's report. There's a little bit of change in how this is presented now. I think this might be the second year of it, that's kind of maybe worth going over again. Basically, we give our opinion first, and in our opinion, because you're a matter of public record, we have to first say that you're not in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, because you already know that, because that's what you opt out of each year from the statute and into a statutory based financial statement. So the third paragraph basically tells you that we do have an unmodified clean opinion on the financial statements in accordance with the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, which is the statutory basis of accounting. Your responsibilities are listed down there at the bottom. Basically, make sure that the financial statements are fairly presented. Our responsibilities are shown on the next page, in which we are supposed to exercise professional judgment, maintain a professional skepticism, identify and assess the risk of material in the statements, obtain understanding and internal control, evaluate the appropriateness of the accounting principles used, and conclude whether in our judgment, the city can continue on for at least one more year. That sounds kind of negative, but that's the way we do it. Okay, we have to see that you're gonna go for another year, even though you've gone for hundreds of years. We also have to get an opinion on supplemental information, because there is quite a bit in the back under Kansas Audit Guide. And we've indicated that our opinion on it is the same as on the financial statements, that we feel that they are fairly presented. There's also prior year comparative information, and we indicate that we've also audited that, and we feel that it is also fairly stated. So if you turn to page 4 and 5 under statutory basis financial statements, basically we have all the funds up front, but we have it in a summary form, taking you from beginning unencumbered cash to ending unencumbered cash, adding back those encumbrances and payables to get you back to the cash balance. So for the year, actually page 6 and 7, you see that you went from almost 6.5 million to 8.8 million in ending unencumbered cash. A large part of that is due to 75,000 or 755,000 increase in the general fund, and that's due to some transfers into that fund. Your employee benefit fund did go down by 247,000, but your COVID money is up 227,000, and your general obligation temporary notes that you're in the process of spending that money is $607,000. Your capital projects funds is up 981,000, and that's mostly due to some projects are still in process at the end of the year. Wallace Park, those. So that money is going to go kind of up this year and back down again next year. On pages 6 and 7, you get to see the business funds or utilities. And they went from 1.2 million, 74,000, 1,286,000. So not a huge increase there, but it is slight in that respect. Oh, let's see, on notes of the financial statements, if you look, most of the first part on page 8 and 9 deal with someone who's not familiar with the city on how you have your fund accounting, how you do your budgetary process. You get to page 10, you actually get to see a statutory part of the financial statements from the standpoint that we have to see that your funds are adequately secured at year end, and they were. You had 9,890,000, which included petty cash, and in the bank you had 9,993,000, which included excluded checks and outstanding and included into deposits in transit. So all of that was secured by FDIC coverage and or pledged securities. Your long-term debt on the next page, you have the GEO temporary notes for 3,110,000. In addition, your payments were 785,000. So you're sitting at a net change of 2,325,000, and your balance at the end there is 8,210,000. You do have some capital leases. They pretty much are just going down each year. There was some copiers, I guess, that were added to that, but the fire truck and the dump truck's actually done. So still the other copiers you had to begin with. So overall, it's 8,629,000 in ending debt, and interest paid was 241,495. On page 12, you get to see how that debt's going to get paid over the next 5 years in 1 year increments, and then after that, what's going to be due in the 5 years after that in order to pay the total off. Let's see. Wasn't much change as far as compensated absences go. Page 15, we have the defined benefit plan. And as I talk about each year, the state of Kansas and Capers plan is underfunded. So they want to find a way to spread the liability out. The liability for you now for the Capers, which is the people other than the police and fire, is 1.7 million, and for the police and fire, it's almost 2.2 million. Again, that's a liability that's not presented in the financial statements other than stating that the amounts are here. It's obviously not due in 1 year. It's not due in 10 years. It's due over a long span of time with the people who come on and when they retire, and it's an estimate as to how long they're going to live and what they're going to pay out, and that's all present value back. So it's a lot of estimates involved in that. So that's one reason it doesn't get booked. It's just shown as basically as a possibility out there. Okay, you go to page 19. One of the things we're supposed to check for, make sure you don't have any budget violations, which you don't. They're all under budget. Health and sanitation is probably one of the closest one with just $439, but as long as that's got a bracket around it or a zero, you're okay from the statute standpoint. Now you did have, well, let me until I get to that, I guess it's I'll talk about it in a second. It has a negative cash balance, and I'll talk about that in a minute. On general funds, your total cash receipts was 5,577,000, which you can see is up right at almost $1 million from the year before. Part of that's due to the taxes increasing. You budgeted 3,600,000 and you end up with 3,900,000. So from that standpoint, the general fund is doing pretty good. The administrative expenses were actually a little below budget and below the previous year. And police department on page 22 is the same way. It's well below budget and also below what it was the year before. Fire department, I think, is the only one that bumped up a little bit. And it's just barely above budget and just a little bit above what it was the year before. Municipal court was another one that was, down to the previous year, down below budget. Street department on page 24 is in that same groove, so things were staying, as far as expenses go, below what you had budgeted and below the previous year, for all except that, for all except the one, the fire department, I guess, was the only one, and like I said, it was just barely above. So overall, in the general fund, you had, a surplus this year of, revenues over expenditures of 754,000. So you're going into next year with an unencumbered balance of 1,196,000 compared to just 441,000 the year before. So that's good.
I like that.
Okay. The employee benefits, on the other hand, page 29, it did go down. It went down 246, almost 250,000. So it's got a carryover of 569,000 compared to 816 the year before. Most of that, I think, is due to expenditures were up slightly, but most of it's due to the cash receipts, and part of that's due to the transfers being down and the taxes being down on the end. After that, I was going to try to find out, see if I can remember where that one from as well. Page 39 has a negative cash of 118. That's the Family Aquatic Center, and normally that'd be a statute violation, but I also know that you still have sales tax money trying to come into there that hasn't made it yet. So I tried to tone it down a little bit as far as what the state looks at and say, yes, we've got what looks like a statute violation, but because the state hasn't sent all the money that they were supposed to send either, so they're partly to blame for that. After that, let's look back at the utility funds. Let's start on page 50 and 51. The sewer fund is sitting in good shape. Total cash was down a little bit, but so we're, but not as much as some of the other funds that did go down, but it did drop $12,000 from the year before. So you had 794,000 in unencumbered cash, and I got 781. And since the sewer, water, and those are more like what they call a business fund, one of the things I do is look to see if you got what can be considered an appropriate carryover cash wise. And if you were a business, what they normally look at is, do you have enough money on hand, unencumbered money in this case, to cover about 3 months worth of activity in the next year. And that number is 349,000. So you do have more than that. And if you pull out that operating transfer, which was rather large, 854,000, it actually drops that to about $135,000. So sewer funds sitting in pretty good shape from that standpoint. Water utility, on the other hand, you look at page 55. First of all, I'll tell you that cash receipts were 2,000,002, which were up under budget by 195, but over previous year by about 300,000. But the expenditures were also from 2 million, just a little over 2 million to 2,173,000. So it did show receipts over expenditures of 37,000. So that fund did grow by that much to have 68,000 in unencumbered cash. But if you take your expenses and divide it by 12 and times it by 3, the carryover balance ideally would be 543,000. So that one has a little bit ways to go to maybe get fully recovered again. The health and sanitation on page 57. When I did the math on it, basically it ends up being just a little below that 3 month, carryover. It's sitting at 103 expenditure wise, if you look at that, and you're sitting at 95, so that's a little bit lower. So most of the funds, overall, yeah, had a pretty good year. Even on the water department, I guess, it did go up, it didn't go down like it did the year before, but, does have a little bit of ways to go to maybe feel secure. Those times when maybe revenues aren't flowing as fast as the expenses are. Okay,
Thank you.
Anyone have questions?
We're doing steps to stay healthy.
yeah, you can't do it all. I understand that. I want to make that point too. You can't necessarily get everything all there at once. It takes a little bit of time.
If there aren't any questions, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2022 audit report from Agler and Gatter.
Second.
Snail,
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you.
All right, next we consider a letter of engagement for the 2023
Yes.
audit.
Yes, and also you'll note down in the bottom.
Yeah.
That needs to be changed to 23.
What, I'm sorry, what?
This is going to be a considered
Oh,
letter of engagement for
Yeah.
the actual 23 audit.
Between audit
I
and
was
budget, I don't know
joking.
what year it is. I've been working in 3 years lately. So in your packet, I included the letter of engagement for 2023 from Harold. He did include the price of $16,970. You choose to accept his letter of engagement, we'll just sign it and he can do that for a section.
Looks like they got healthy too.
There are any questions? Is there a motion?
Yes, I move to accept the letter of engagement with Agler and Gatter to audit the city of Paola for calendar year 2023 in the amount of $16,970.
I'll second it.
Snail,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
All right, motion passed. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold.
Thank you, Harold.
Thank you.
Now we consider adopting resolution 2023-012, waiving the certain provisions of the general accepted accounting principles.
This is something we do annually. If we didn't waive this, we would have to assign a price to absolutely everything that the city owns, including streets, sewer lines, water lines, all that. So by waiving that, we don't have to do that. So that's what this resolution is allowing us to do.
I move to adopt resolution 2023-012, waiving conformance to certain provisions of the generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP.
I second.
Snail,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
All right, motion passed. Next, the LDO text amendment for tiny home cluster development.
So at the May 16th Planning Commission meeting, commissioners voted unanimously to approve an LDO text amendment regarding tiny home cluster developments. And this was spurred due to recent adoption of the 2018 International Residential Codes that allow for tiny homes in Appendix Q. Currently, we have no zoning regulations outlined for tiny home residential clusters. So the following text and table amendments were composed by the Planning Commission with staff input. And it's important to note that if the text amendment is approved, any potential project would require an approved conditional use permit through Planning Commission and City Council. So you'd like to start, we can just kind of do a run through of what the ordinance language would be if approved. There is a table that would be used attached in your packet. And then the text to go with it. So it would state that Tiny home, single-family cluster developments may be considered for a conditional use permit if the following standards are met. Cluster development must be retained under common ownership, including common space, common open spaces, buildings, and structures. A site plan is submitted and approved by Planning Commission and City Council. The tiny home development shall only be permitted with a minimum spacing of 1,000 feet between tiny home developments. Minimum site area in any district would be 1.5 acres. All tiny home cluster developments must provide an on-site storm shelter. All tiny home cluster developments must comply with lot setbacks in Article 4. Flexible setbacks are permitted from lot boundaries to enable functional site design during site plan review by Planning Commission. All tiny homes shall maintain a minimum separation of 10 feet from other tiny homes within the development. Each tiny home within a development shall meet off-street parking requirements in Table 3, 110A. Off-street parking spaces for tiny homes must be of an acceptable all-weather surface such as asphalt, concrete, chip seal, graded and compacted gravel, or other stabilized system. All tiny homes must be connected to all available public utilities. Composting toilets are not permitted. Tiny homes on wheels are not permitted. Prefabricated tiny homes built in accordance with currently adopted building codes are permitted. Tiny homes may be used as a guest house in accordance with Section 3.314 as allowed by Table 3.110A general use. Tiny homes as a guest house is defined as a small detached accessory dwelling unit located on the same lot as a primary single-family detached dwelling unit that is intended to provide living quarters for non-paying personal guests of the owners of the principal residence. The primary dwelling unit must be owner occupied. Tiny home guest house shall not have separate utility meters. The area where the tiny home guest house is located shall not be divided off into a new lot of record. Tiny homes used as a guest house shall be on a site with an owner occupied single family residence. The architectural design, roofing material, exterior materials and color, roof pitch and style, type of windows and trim details of the unit shall be substantially the same as and visually compatible with the primary dwelling. Tiny homes used as guest house may not be on wheels and shall be placed on a permanent foundation. No more than one tiny home guest house per property, and the combined square footage of the principal structure, guest house, detached garage, and storage or utility shed shall not exceed the maximum building coverage in Table 4.110A use and lot standards, where no maximum building coverage is provided. The combined structures shall not cover more than 70% of lot area. Landscaping requirements: 1 landscaping plant per tiny home, 4 landscaping plant units per acre of open space. And the number of plant units required may be altered by the Planning Commission during site plan review. The requirement of an opaque fence around the perimeter of the lot will be at the discretion of the zoning administrator during the site plan review process. Each tiny home that is moved in or built on site must be inspected by the City of Paola building inspector to obtain a certificate of occupancy. Utility easements as required by a service provider and drainage easements as necessary to cover any drainage improvements shall be shown on the site plan with easement dimensions and reporting information provided. All structural requirements will meet the 2018 International Building Code Appendix Q. And that just calls out ceiling height, lofts, emergency escapes, rescue openings, and minimum square footages for occupancy. And defining a tiny home. Tiny home means a detached and self-contained dwelling unit permanently constructed on a foundation, frame, or chassis and designed for use as permanent living quarters. That A is equipped for basic functional areas that support normal daily routines such as cooking, sleeping, and sanitation. Must only be 1 story excluding lofts. And a tiny home does not include a trailer, semi-trailer, camp trailer, recreational vehicle, or other manufactured housing.
Thank you.
You're
That was a
welcome.
lot.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's the only, on the guest house, like a tiny home is a guest house. It doesn't say if it's a permanent tiny home guest house. Can there be somebody living in there all the time?
The definition of guest house in the LDO is it's to be used, if by someone that's staying with you, it's for a non-paying, non-rental structure. If it doesn't we can't dictate if you stay a week or a month or 24 hours.
Okay,
Are there any other questions?
like one of the things, oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
One of the things that I had trouble with was attachment A, and I brought it up to check that. Because I had to pull up the LDO to see what these letters meant. And these down here, which were kind of explanatory. Once I got that, the rest of this made perfect sense, and Jessica said she could have provided. You know, a little box or something that said what those letters are. So I just thought, you know, if we come into this again, that would be handy.
Yeah,
Index or something.
Yeah,
yeah, so all the tables already exist in the LDO, and there are little notations that say a C stands for conditional use. It's already there, so these will just be added to that table.
yeah,
But I understand this little.
yeah. Well, the ones above that, E, S, M, C, S, C, all of those.
Oh, all the zoning districts.
Yeah. So, but I pulled it up and got them, but it would be handy next time if we have
Sure,
something like that.
I can do that for you.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of the clustered tiny homes. But I am questioning and I don't like the idea of the guest house in back of residential homes in Paola. If I bought a house out in Country Club, out in Rockwood, the new addition Rockwood, they have homeowners associations. They're protected from something like this happening in their backyard. But in the older part of Paola, they don't have protection from a homeowners association. And I'm totally opposed to building a tiny house or a guest house on a lot where there's already a residential home. You may have a storage shed, you might have a carport. You look up and 70% of the lot can be covered by buildings. And I believe the way I read it is that you will have 30% of ground showing. The rest of it's building. I'm just opposed to the tiny house, guest house part of this. The clustered tiny houses have to be on 4 acres at least. Don't they?
Planning Commission suggested 1.5.
Well, at one time, it was 4 acres.
They talked about several numbers. but they-
Yeah. Well, I'm opposed to 1.5 acres. I personally like the idea that if there's gonna be a clustered home, a situation, it would have to be on 4 acres. Because that way it protects the people in the inner city from having tiny homes built near their properties. If 4 acres, that's gonna have to put it on the outside of the city. And probably the land would have to be brought into the city to have a clustered situation. I'm opposed to the 1.5. I agree with 4 acres. But for very many reasons, besides the fact that the inner city is not protected by homeowners associations, I'm opposed to this for a lot of reasons. So.
Does anything in the, and I probably didn't hear it, and you probably said it in all of the reading you did. Anything protecting any of these structures from becoming like a VRBO or an Airbnb or anything like that? Would anybody be able to build one and use that for that? Because that would be like a guest house, but yet they'd be profiting off of it. You see what I'm saying?
So you're asking if a tiny home as a guest house could be a VRBO?
Mhm.
There aren't any zoning regulations regarding any sorts of VRBOs in Paola. That's not something that's easily achievable.
It's a new phenomenon, and honestly, I think Lawrence is just tackling that. So
Okay.
we'd like for them to get the bugs out before we tackle that ourselves.
I do want to be very clear, though, it does say in here, it says living quarters for non-paying personal guests.
Yeah.
So that they're.
We would have some
for
teeth,
Airbnb,
if
they
that
would
were-
pay, so yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But then again, how are you gonna monitor that?
I don't think there's.
There's no way you can monitor it. So I could build a guest home in the back of my, I could put a guest house or a tiny house in the back of my property. And grandma could move in
Sure.
and stay there a week or a year, and she could be paying me. And nobody would know it.
Okay, I understand, but I do want to reiterate that guest house is already in our code. That could already happen. So the
Okay.
only thing that they're amending is to allow for a tiny home to be a guest home. So there are mother-in-law suite kits that is very popular, that is pre-built, they put in the back. Similar to that, but this would be manufactured tiny home. So it's not saying that anyone can put up a tiny home. There's already regulations in place where it has to be a CUP. It's only allowed in certain zoning districts to get a CUP. So it's not just anywhere in town they can put up a guest house or a tiny house in the backyard. So there's a lot of process to go through. Someone can't just come in and get a permit. It always has to go to planning commission and council.
So how do we know which areas of town or what lots they can put it on and can't?
So, yes, so when it says, what was amended for you, which is, it says references, Article 3, what is that?
What is the number? 3.14.
Yes, so when you go to that reference, it'll tell you all the zoning districts that is allowed. For it, and it has it in a table as well. So it's already in there. All of those parameters that they would have to go through.
I still say I'm in favor of cluster houses on 4 acres and not less. And I oppose not the guest houses myself. But for various reasons.
And these would be open lots. These would be, you can't already have a structure for the cluster development. You cannot have another structure there. So finding a 1.5 acre lot in the middle of Paola that's empty.
Well, it could have, if I had own a home, I could have a shed in the back.
But you already have that structure on there.
That's a
Yeah,
guest
I
house.
have that structure.
I'm specifically speaking to cluster developments.
That's what.
You were talking acreage and.
But you'd be surprised, there are 1.5 acres of places, building lots in Paola.
That would still have to go through a CUP too. That's not just automatic, they could do exactly what they wanted.
Anyone else have any comments? Questions? If not, is there a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 3205, amending the land development ordinance for tiny home cluster developments.
I'll second.
Mail,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Peckman,
Aye.
Shields,
No,
Motion passed. Next, the conditional use permit for E&K Diesel.
E&K Diesel recently purchased 404 Northeast Street, which was formerly Brewers Automotive. And they have completed a lot of work there, cleaning up that property. It looks really nice. So at the May Planning Commission meeting, commissioners also voted unanimously to recommend approval of an amendment to their existing CUP. They have a little bit of a different business model than what existed. So in the LDO, that property is a thoroughfare access zoning district, and the use is considered heavy retail and service, which requires a CUP in the LDO. The recommended conditions would be to have hours of operation 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. All customer and employee parking shall be located in off-street parking in the fenced area or in the fenced area in the parking lot. Overnight parking, except for 4 after-hours drop-off spaces, shall be in the fenced area. Total number of cars in the fenced area shall be limited to 50. No more than 10 inoperable vehicles may be stored for no longer than 60 consecutive calendar days. Allow no more than 10 visibly marked spaces for the use of for sale vehicles. These spaces shall be on the north side of the property on the concrete parking area. At any time, the city may institute revocation of the conditional use permit for violations of the conditions of approval, expiration, or the reasons specified in section 21-25 of the land development ordinance. The city shall provide notice to the landowners and the public in the same manner as was provided for the establishment of the conditional use permit. Would the city council wish to accept the planning commission's recommendation and approve the amended conditional use permit for E&K Diesel?
One of the questions that I have, Jessica, I thought it is diesel. I thought these were trucks, not cars.
Diesel engines. So they're
truck.
mostly trucks. There are some diesel cars, but
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Some of the mostly
yeah,
pickups.
so mostly pickup trucks.
I just assumed that this would be like the tractors that pull semis.
Oh, to my knowledge, they don't have the space for that.
So it's just diesel engines, okay.
And at the planning commission meeting, you guys mentioned it has to fit, so even if it says 50 or 10, if it's
Yes.
not parked.
Yes,
Right,
everything
but-
has to be behind the fence
Mhm.
for, and the reason they came to some of these unique numbers was supply chain
Mhm.
constraints. They're, any mechanic you talk to now is, they're having issues with parts and pieces, so
Mhm.
they, planning commission understood that and wanted to allow, and, so, only year we do a review, there are parameters to kind of help with that if it becomes an issue.
And they'll all be behind the privacy fence,
Yeah,
so.
they've taken the fence, they've existing fence down, and they're cleaning up the tree line so they can get a new fence in there.
That was nice.
It does
Looks
look
really
nice.
good. Any other questions or comments about it? If not, is there a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance 3206 to amended conditional use permit 01 CUP 06 for E&K Diesel at 404 North East Street.
I'll second.
Ma'am,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passed. Next, we have the Heatherwood replats.
We have a replat request for Heatherwood Block 11, which is, Cottonwood Court. It was originally platted and approved in July of 2004 as part of a planned unit development, which requires certain percentages of different styles of residential housing. The sale of the lots has been stagnant for several years, and the applicant would like to replat to be able to sell those lots specifically for single-family detached houses. In order to achieve that, the city council would have to approve the replat of Block 11 for Heatherwood Estates.
How many lots was that?
14, I think.
14.
Are they in the size of the lots?
They're larger lots, they're 12,000, little over 12,000 square feet.
I can imagine people that would be looking over there probably are gonna want a house because of their probably families. So this is a good move, I think. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the replat of block 11 Heatherwood Estates to allow for single-family detached residence.
A second.
Snail,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Heckman,
Aye.
Shields.
Aye.
Motion passed, thank you. Next, Paola Crossing second plat.
At the May Planning Commission meeting, commissioners voted to recommend approval of Paola Crossing second plat. It was completed by R.L. Buford and Associates. The original plat for the development included lots 1 and 2, which is Casey's and Scooters. And the second plat will add lot 3. It's currently zoned thoroughfare access. And the intended use of that lot is a commercial office space. The minimum site area is 10,000 square feet, and lot 3 is proposed at 49,285. The building lines for the frontage as well as any existing easements are carried over onto the second plat as well. And if you have any questions, we'll be able to answer those for you.
Any questions? All right, if not, is there a motion?
I move to approve the Paola Crossing second plat.
I second it.
Snail,
Aye.
Case, Peckman,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Motion passed, thank you. And the VA medical clinic site plan, which is going into the lot that we just,
Yeah, so the VA clinic site plan, commissioners looked at last month as well. They voted to recommend approval. If the parcel is approximately 1.13 acres, it was completed by Warger Associates Consulting Engineers, who's here tonight, answer any questions if you have them. The proposed use is a single-story medical clinic. Wilson and Company reviewed the site plan, and on-site drainage calculations for the city, and a final approval was recently received. All zoning requirements for lot width, setbacks, parking, ADA spaces, trash enclosures, those are all included and approved. A signage plan can be approved at staff level along with the landscaping plan.
it's good to see it moving along out there.
Mhm.
Anybody have any questions on this one? And you said before they had some concerns, but they've all been addressed since.
Yes, yep.
There's not any questions, is there a motion?
I move to approve the site plan for VA medical clinic on lot 3 of Paola Crossings.
I second.
Snail,
Aye.
Case,
Aye.
Peckman,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Motion passed, thank you. Traffic control device schedule,
Thank you for coming.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
This is the resolution.
So this was the resolution to add some stop signs to the Paola Crossings intersection. They're missing at 3 intersections, so we'd like to add a stop sign in their 3 directions.
A little louder, please. Thank you. I
So,
heard you, but.
okay. And also the new handicap parking at Wallace Park will require handicap signs, so we'd like to add those to the traffic control device schedule as well.
Sounds good. Any questions on that? If not, is there a motion?
I move to approve resolution 2023-1013, amending the traffic control device schedule for the city of Paola.
I second.
Snail,
Aye.
Case,
Aye.
Peckman,
Aye.
Shields,
Aye.
Motion approved, thank you. And personnel policy update.
Yes, I will take this one from Ms. Vicky Belt, or she cannot be here today, but, so as we discussed at work study, we currently have, a standby status and an on-call status for our employees, but we are going to amend a couple of those categories because they don't fit with our current job descriptions that utilize those. So the first one is standby status. We're going to amend it to, reflect, this is mainly used for public works. So we are going to amend it to fit those job duties as well. So the yellow highlight is what is added. Honestly, it's just definitions. It's really no difference than the original. The newest component would be 4.11C, detective mobile phone on-call status. This is because detectives, they weren't getting paid for answering the phone. They only get paid when they have to come back in. So we're giving them 4 comp hours for just carrying the phone to cover those calls. So if they come back in, they will also get paid if they go over 4 hours. This is trying to compensate for those who have to carry the phone so often.
I guess I don't understand what the difference between on-call and standby.
Sure, okay, so, let's see here. What was that, what was the difference, Jessica?
Standby for public works is just if you potentially could have some issues with,
Yeah,
Oh, thank you,
yeah.
the standby is if we're time to go home, we tell the guys, hey, you need to hang around here, we gotta go take care of, or see if we've got a leak or something like that, then they get paid to stay there. The on-call, they get 4 hours to carry the phone. And or they answer the phone, but they don't get paid any more than that 4 hours, but when they get called in, then they get 2 hours to come in and take care of something. And then they go home, and then 2 hours later, or 3 hours later, they call back, they get another 2 hours to come back. And that's the on-call staff. But the standbys, if you're told you need to hang around, because we may be working here a little bit. So.
Especially if you're predicting a big rain or something, you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just basically, if they're directed to stick around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they need to have that definition, yeah, good.
Are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-014, amending city of Paola personnel policy.
Second,
Smale.
Aye.
Ace.
Aye.
Peckman.
aye.
Shield.
Aye.
All right, motion passed, thank you. And staff reports, we'll start with. Chief, will you have anything? Stephanie?
I don't.
Brittany?
I do, actually. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah. All right, so, just a couple updates on our dangerous structures that we're in the process of. As a reminder, they have till this Friday to come pull a permit. For 809 South Silver. I have that Tracy Peterson submitted a list of repairs, was reviewed by our plan reviewer on 6/8. Our plan reviewer, required Tracy to submit, engineered plans. So those were submitted today. So he's in the process. I don't know if he'll get it by Friday, but he's in the process of getting a permit. And then 115 West Rio, we still have not, gotten any contact from the owners. So they have till Friday to do that, and then we will be able to move forward if they do not. So, yep. And then I will hand these out on, when we're done, we have recess at work day this Friday. We love for council to come and eat lunch with us, play kickball. I think is what we have planned, and some other fun activities if you guys would like to join us. So.
Oh, I can't do that one.
We have the schedule that tells you when we're gonna eat too. So if you wanna come and eat, you can come eat with us. So that is all I have.
Jessica?
Building inspection has received, a new home permit. So that's kind of nice to see him still trickling in. And then, we have planning commission next week, and we have 2 public hearings. One is, the Haven / Lincoln event space. There's a public hearing for that. They're trying for a CUP. And then one of them is an amendment for CUP for 102 South Hospital.
Very good.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's been a while since you haven't had a public hearing.
We could take a break in July. I think it's.
I was grateful she put her vacation the day after. So I went out to take that one. So thank you.
We're starting to time those better.
Yeah.
Kurt, do you have anything? All right.
The only thing I have is a question on the fiber installation. Is it on hold right now or something because of the rock?
Not that I'm aware of, but not that I've heard.
Because I haven't seen anybody out there. My neighbor next door to me, her yard has been tore up for 5 weeks now.
Okay, so. The best thing to that is if they talk to you, your neighbor, because I don't know unless they call and tell me their yard's not right. We have a direct contact with Suddenly who will come and fix that for them. So if you could tell me and tell me their address, we can definitely send that. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Quick call. Thank you. We can definitely get that direct contact and get that on.
It's 16 over, so.
Oh,
They're working around the family center and north right now.
They had talked to me, they tore my yard up to about 5
Yeah.
feet. They talked to me and said that they may have to subcontract the rest of the development out there because they're hitting so much rock. But
Getting so much rock.
underground rock, there's a lot of rock ledge. But if it's, that's why I was curious, because if it's being subcontracted out to a different firm for that, then something needs to be done with my neighbor's yard until they get to it. Because right now she's got a giant hole with cones around it and an orange pipe sticking up.
Suddenly with, oh my gosh, Quick Comp would still be responsible for that because it would be their stuff, so we would deal with them still. So, yes, I would still have that direct contact.
Will she come in and file a complaint?
Probably not. Arnie?
We could probably, what we could do is I could reach out to them and have them either, well, reach out to the neighbor and talk to them, let them know what's going on. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the line of communication needs to be between them,
Oh, she knows what's going on.
Yeah.
but they need to, I mean, they need to satisfy the people. You know, and we can put some pressure on them to do that.
Her biggest concern, she's had words with them. And her biggest concern is that they're not out there right. They haven't been out there for quite a while now. And so she's got this giant hole in her front yard.
Well, you'd think that they would finish one area and before they moved on.
Well, that's why I asked, because I thought maybe they
Yeah.
had went to get somebody that could go through rocks better than they can.
Yeah, they're north of Family Center, going to Prairie Place, that area.
It's a good idea. Or
But if she needs to sign a complaint, I can almost guarantee you she would.
Well, I think we start with just reaching out, seeing why
yeah,
it's taking them so long. I mean, I understand it is rock, I know that's why, but if they're hiring somebody else to come in and do it, they're kind of at their mercy, but they need to police up after themselves if they're gonna be gone for a while.
Once they got done, they did,
Clean up good, yeah.
Yeah.
and obviously grass ain't gonna grow this time of year, but they did seed it too.
Yeah, I think I've had some issues at a couple other spots and they seem to be pretty responsive to take care of it. I'll reach out to them.
Okay,
Anything else?
nope.
No. Happy?
yes. Looking at the financial statements that I get once a month. It's looking good. I would like to go to have someone comment to each department that they are really maintaining their expenditures. They're doing a very good job. So they need to be told that.
We'll relay that tomorrow, Stephanie.
Okay.
Leanne, do you have anything?
No.
I did have a question on budget. Harold made the comment that if they went over, any department went over budget, it would be a state violation. Is that something new?
No,
No,
Because used to, the department could go over budget as long as the general budget was under.
It's like the library,
that's where. it would
Yeah.
be.
or employee benefits, the general fund, that would be a huge amount to go over that one, yes. Yeah, so the whole general fund would be considered one department.
That's why the fire was not considered a budget violation, but the pool was, because the pool's not part of general fund.
I know in the past, department heads have had to go over budget, especially when the state mandates something mid-year or something that's
Yep.
very expensive.
Yep.
I want to make sure that it wasn't violated.
Nope.
Good.
good question, but yes, yeah.
Good job on all the funds last year, now that we have the official word from our accountant.
Yeah, that's the first time we saw it too. Oh.
That is all I have for tonight, so you guys would like to leave and your motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Snail,
Aye.
Hayes, Heckman,
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Thank you.